Hello everyone, Nigel with you, Nigel's Modern Bench. Welcome back. Part 2 now of the build of this little beauty. This is the brand new Airfix Bf109 G5 G6 and this is video 2. So we started in part 1 and we built up a lot of this. We washed the parts, we chose our subject and all that good stuff. And then what I've done in the meantime, while I've been off camera, I've gone round and dealt with all the seams. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a sink or something in there, so that's been filled with black super glue. Also up here, and where else? On here I wanted to get rid of that little join line there. This here, I'm going to show you the technique in a minute, but basically you've got some detail here with some leads and stuff on there. So you don't want to go sanding, so what I've done is use my Mr. Surfacer trick on that. I'll show you that in a minute on something else. And then on the supercharger, just done the seams here with some black super glue. Around the back here there's like a little bit of a gap where the two parts go together, so I've done that with some Mr. Surfacer. And then that's basically that really. I haven't done anything at all with this. I'll have a look at this when it's properly dried off. So basically we have a load of parts here all ready for painting, and we can build a sub-assembly. So what we've got now is an actual engine block, and the first thing to do, if I put the instructions in the like I had in part 1, it tends to white out the camera, so I've folded it in half. So we can see here we've got this panel going in. This is actually the top of the engine, but you know, in a normal V12 engine it would be the bottom of the sump. So this is going to go in with the hole forward. Don't worry, you can't fit it backwards, it won't physically fit, so you're okay there. In fact, it will actually go together, but you end up with a big gap at the front, so make sure you don't put it in the wrong way around. So what I'm going to do here is drop this in, okay, and then I'm going to apply cement after. You notice I always apply cement after because I don't want glue oozing out. If I put glue in there first and then push this in, the cement might ooze out. So I'm going to put some cement in here at the back because that's going to be covered up by that rear casing. So I can put plenty in there, and you'll notice I'm using the quick setting, and the reason for that is I want to come straight in and show you my technique with the Mr. Surfacer. Just put a drop in there, and a drop in there, there we go. And now I'm not going to touch it, I'm just going to let that sit for a minute and dry. We've also got this rear cover to go on, but I don't want to fit this just yet because what I'm going to do is deal with that seam, and you can't get right in the corner with what I'm going to do with the cotton bud, so I'm not going to fit that just yet. What we can do is go on and fit this front cover. So we've got this spindle going in here. I know we're supposed to fit the cylinder heads next, but don't worry about that, it doesn't matter. I'm only doing it this way for speed. So that's going to go in there like that, okay, and then that spinner's going to sit in there. So what we're going to do here is, once again, I'm going to grab something to see if I can clamp it. I'm not sure if it's going to let me. So what we'll do is we'll use our fingers and we'll use the quick setting. So I'm going to get a drop of quick setting on the brush, and I'm going to go around here at the bottom and just let that wick around. I think I'll come in here as well. There we go. Just let that wick around. In fact, it doesn't need to be held in place. The beauty of this quick setting, it dries extremely fast, but also it doesn't leave, that you can see where I've put glue in there and left a little bit on the surface. It just leaves like a little shiny mark, and then once you paint it, it's hidden. So that's that. So we'll make sure that's fitted nicely. We've got a spinner on there, that's all lovely. So there we go. So there's our engine basically built. And remember, if you're doing it with the cowlings closed, you won't use this part here, which is H42. You will be using a different part, which is G9, that one there. Okay, so it's just a dummy top part. Okay, so we could put the cylinder heads on now actually, because then we can do the same treatment with the seams there. So I'm going to make sure I get the right one on the right side. So that's with it that way up, and that's like that. So you can see we got these exhaust ports on the outside here. Okay, and we got the spark plug locations there. So basically this is going to glue into there like that. Alright, now what I'm going to do here, I am going to grab wherever it's gone. What have I done with it? My Tamiya, no, I won't bother, I was going to use the Tamiya white glue, but I'll use the extra thin. not the quick setting. What I'm going to do is just put some down here on the inside, so towards the center, and just drop that down in there like that. Okay, and then we'll do the same on the other side. I've already test fitted all of this, guys, so you won't see me test fitting because I've already done it off camera. I'm filming this. I've just put part 1 up, so it's Saturday evening. Well, thank you for, I've seen some lovely comments already on the review and everything. Thank you very much for that. I haven't seen any comments on build part 1 yet, obviously, because as you're watching this, none of you have commented because it's only just gone up. There we go. I'm just going to do a quick test fit of this because the position of these cylinder heads is critical to having that fit. Look at that, straight in, perfect. Okay, so make sure you've got this piece to hand built up when you put your cylinder heads on. So I would suggest breaking the build sequence, so don't glue them to the block until you've done this here, and then you can be sure then that that's going to fit. You don't want to come along, you know, 24, 48 hours later and find that doesn't fit. So it's the same with the old Merlins. You need to make sure the manifold fits when the cylinder heads are fitted. So there we go. So that's gone in there, that. Okay, and that's a lovely fit. So that's all good. Right. So we're just going to leave this for a little while to dry. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put a drop of quick setting in here. What that does, it kicks it all off, it gets it going. Put a drop of quick setting in there and a drop in there. And then I'm going to drop in there and a drop in there. Okay. I'm just going to leave that for a few minutes. Alright, so I went on and glued the rear on because I noticed in here there is a bit of a gap in there. So I want to fill that as well. So we're going to have to get in there with something and deal with it. But you'll see what I mean in a minute. And these little cam drives, they're really nice. Okay. So there we go. Right. Now then. This is a product called Mr. Surfacer. A lot of you have seen me use it a million times. What I'm going to do is the old cotton bud method, which a lot of you have seen me do a million times also. So what I'm going to, I generally use Mr. Surfacer 1000. There is a 500 which is thicker and you can thin it down. The trouble is with the 500, sometimes it's a little thick and it won't get into joints. And what I do is I go in with a cotton bud. You can see here. I go in with a cotton bud with thinners on it and remove the excess. The trouble is, if it doesn't go into the joint, when you remove the excess, you get the joint back. So you want it to penetrate. So basically, I am using this. This is the 1000. And what I'm going to do is just brush this into here. Okay, and just let that capillary into that joint. And then we will get a lovely joint in there without a gap in it. Okay, not that it really matters because the engine is painted black, most of it is covered up, but remember we're going with cowlings open, so this is going to be visible. At least I'm going to put one side open. I might just do a little twist on the theme and have one side closed and one side open, and that's going to take some careful calculation on what we add and what we don't add. Not sure if that'll work or not. I'll probably just go with both. It's an idea. Okay, so you can see I'm just brushing this in and letting it go round. It doesn't need to be particularly tidy. I want to get plenty in there because there's quite a little gap there to fill. All right. I'm also going to put some around here, around these, where these cam drive shafts connect. I think that's called Desmodronic drive in there or something. Right, and then here, we don't need anything around that front cover because it fits beautifully. And then here around this panel here, we've got a little bit of a gap. So I'm just going to brush some into there and let that go in. Put plenty on. Don't be shy to put plenty on. It does shrink back quite a lot. And don't worry about getting it on the bolts and everything because you're not going to be sanding it off. you're going to be wiping it off with a cotton bud. So we're going to put it round there and seal that joint in. I also need to make sure I get some in the back, in that gap at the back. And if you do want some a bit thicker, you'll generally find that off the edge of the jar like that, you'll get some thicker. And if you do want it thicker, you can take some out, put it on a upturned Tamiya jar or something, and then it will thicken up in minutes. In warm weather, it'll dry out in minutes. But it's far from warm here at the moment, I can tell you that now. Okay, so we're just going to pile that into there. In fact, I may need to use some 500 because that gap is quite big. Just keep putting it in, it'll fill up there's like a slot there that it can fill up. There we go. Then we can come along around the edge of there, just brush some into there. If you notice I'm not being at all tidy with it, doesn't matter. Just want to make sure you've got a consistent line all the way along, just like that. Somebody commented in the review that they would like to see me just build this and not try and do it as like a tutorial thing. But I just can't help myself sometimes. I like showing people new techniques they might not have seen before. There we go. There we are. Right, so that's that done. In fact, I think I might brush a little bit more onto this seam here, because I think I might still be able to feel a little bit of a step. So I think I'll brush some onto there, just a little bit, and leave it for 24 hours. If you do this, what I'm going to do is go around with a cotton bud with thinners, which you're going to see in a second, but it will be like probably tomorrow for me, or later on tonight. But if you try and do it too soon, what will happen is, it doesn't really matter in the case of the engine block, because we're not trying to hide a seam, we're just filling a gap. And this technique I'm showing you is perfect when you've got any raised detail, like if you've got a hatch going onto a tank and it's got a gap around it. You paint this on, and what you do is you leave it for sort of 24 hours or whatever, 12 hours, whatever you like, and then you come in and use some Mr. Leveling thinners, Mr. Colour Leveling thinners on a cotton bud, and I tend to use a wooden one if I can because they're harder and it removes less, and then we just wipe over, remove the excess, and it will basically, it will leave that seam around that panel because it is a panel, but it will fill the gap, and because we're using thinners to remove it, it won't remove any detail. So it's great, it works really, really well. So there we are. So I'm going to leave that for probably 12-24 hours to dry off and really pull in and everything, and then we'll go from there. I'll see you in a bit. And we're back. It's Sunday morning now, and here we are. This has had about, I don't know, 12-13 hours. So I've got my Mr. Colour Leveling thinners here. This is my chosen thinner of use. Don't use cellulose thinners, don't use rapid thinners, don't use tool cleaner, don't use extra thin. This is about the hottest chemical you want to use. You can just use alcohol or the Tamiya acrylic thinners, and it will work, but it does take a lot longer. So all I'm doing is wetting the cotton bud and just rubbing this over the Mr. Surfacer, and what that will do is remove the excess Mr. Surfacer from the surface, as you can see. The other thing you can do is just go over and wet areas before you go in there, and then the thinner can start to attack. Basically, what we're going to do is remove the excess Mr. Surfacer, and it will leave the Mr. Surfacer, it will leave it in the gap. So you end up with a sort of a seam, if you like, but no oh wait. You end up with a seam, but no holes, no gaps, as it were. So it's a really good way of gap filling where you don't want to sand, like where you've got raised detail or whatever, particularly like around here. You'll see in a minute. around that top end. So there we go. Right, and we've got on the other side. Do the same, just literally just rubbing away with a cotton bud, just removing the mister surfacer from the surface and leaving it in the gap. So you can see what you kind of end up with there. Okay. Just looking at my camera, I think it's been pushed over that way, hasn't it? It's a bit to the left. There we go. Right. Then once we get to when the end of the cotton bud gets a bit tatty, we move on to the other end. We'll wet that in the thinners. Always put the lid back on the thinners. You don't want to be breathing that in, and just in case you knock it over. There we go. So getting that gap in there, squeeze the end of the bud so it makes a flat. You can actually get smaller cotton buds. I've got them here. I've got the anise ones. I've got the Tamiya ones. But I very rarely use them, to be honest. So there we go. So that's that done. Literally that quick. And then here you can see on the top plate, as it were, go to the front. We can go around. I'm going to wet the whole area. Just remove the excess and it will leave as you can see there, it just leaves the mister surfacer in the gap and fills the joint, so it all looks like one piece rather than having gaps everywhere. So I'll go on and get this done and then we'll move on with the build. Okay, so those seams are all done now, all looking good, all looking lovely, happy with that. I may go over this again because as you can see down in there, I don't know if you can see, there's air bubbles. So that's one of the problems with it. You'll get air bubbles in there. When you remove the top, the air bubbles are exposed. So I may go over that again. But just to continue with the build for now. So looking at this, as you can see, we've still got a grey engine. Nothing is painted. This unit here, this is like a little pipe, a breather pipe or something. So that's going to go into there, and that's going to sit in that hole in the bottom of the crankcase. I'll probably keep calling this the top of the engine because, you know, not everybody has an inverted engine. So what I'm going to do is a drop of extra thin, maybe that was tight, drop of extra thin in there. Okay, and then we can make sure the top is aligned, and then drop of cement in there, drop of cement in there, and there we go. Make sure they're central to the raised lugs on the rocker covers, cam covers, whatever they are. There we go. So that's that. And then we're going to fit this little unit here. Now there's a sink mark in the side there, as you can see, but that's going to disappear once it's fitted, so not too worried about that. So what I'm going to do is put this in here like so, and then hold it back with the shaft, and then put a drop of extra thin. Now what I'm going to do with this, I'm probably going to build pretty much the whole engine and then paint it black, and then the details can get brushed in after. Okay. The problem is with painting everything first is you have to scrape paint away to get a nice glue joint, and then you get the glue marks, and it all has to be touched in, and you can end up with a right old mess on your hands if you're not careful. So I always find it's best to build as much as you can. Oops. It's best to build as much as you can, and then let me get the quick setting on here. And then paint, and that way you don't get the glue marks and everything all over the paint. Right, so there we go. Now on this part here, this is H26. It's got a big square tab that goes into the back of the casing here. I had to just shave that down a touch on mine because it was a little bit too wide. So now I've got to come in and make sure that everything's sitting central and square. There we go. Okay, so happy with that. Right, what's next? Right, moving along, we've got this unit here which has got to go on, so that's already been assembled, and that's down here. So this is going on to the back of the engine here, so we've got a little slot in there, and that's going to go onto there like that, and we've got those two pipes that align in there with the cylinder head. So drop of extra thin in there, drop of extra thin in there. I'm going to put another drop in there like that. There we go, and then that joins onto the rear engine cover there. Okay, so that's that. Let's put another drop in there. Make sure it's glued on nice and firmly. There we go. And then we've got this unit here which is already assembled and seams dealt with and everything. So with the engine inverted, it's going that way round, and it's going to sit in that slot there. So there we go. It's going to sit in there like that. Okay, so that's that in there. And then we've got this unit here, which again with the engine inverted is going in, and we've got to make sure that this little round nubbin that's sticking it on here is facing outwards. So that's basically going to go like that, and then we'll get a drop of cement into there to hold that in position. There we go. I just want to make sure that is actually cemented in because it seems to be a little bit wonky. Okay, so that's that in there, and then we've got this little piece here, H9, and that's going to go onto that little lug there. So you've got an off-center hole, which means it will only go in one way. So that's going to sit on there like that. Where are my tweezers? Here they are. Okay, and then we'll put another drop of extra thin in there. That will hold that in position. Okay, as you can see, all of this is 85 except for little bits and pieces which we can brush paint in after. And then we've got this unit here which is two halves gone together, and that's here, and that is going to go with the engine inverted. It's going to go in with these sort of pipe fittings facing down. So it's got a big tab on it there. So that's going to go in there like that. I got a feeling that is the magneto, which is what gives them the spark. Okay, so that's gone on like that. And then we've got ignition leads going in. I'm not going to fit those. And then we've got the supercharger going on. Now the supercharger is going to go onto there like that, and obviously it's going to go over the top of the ignition leads by the look of it. So I'm not going to fit the supercharger yet. I think we're at the stage where we need to look at doing some painting. So we've got some greeblies going on the bottom here. There's some little parts going on the bottom here, and there's nothing that's going to interfere with what we're doing with the ignition leads and stuff. So let's have a look at these. So we've got a couple of parts here, so I'll get those off the sprue, I'll get them on. Okay, so we're back. Right, I've gone around and done those little touch-up bits in there, and that's all done. So now we can start adding some greeblies. Now there's a bit of a query here. As you can see here, the instructions are telling us to use H7 on one side and Q36 on the other. Now Q36 is a raised part with a lug on the side of it, whereas H7, as you can see here, is just like a cover. Okay, and there's Q36 there. Alright, now Q36 is not shown anywhere else. As you can see, you come to here and you can see that Q36 is that piece, and then here they've got a plain one which is actually a sprue G, isn't it? I want sprue H, which is actually H8. So you've got H7 here, H8 there, but they're telling us to use this Q36, but nowhere else does it show it in the manual. It's all H8. You can see all the way through here. So when you come to the picture of the actual engine itself, you can see that we do have that Q36 on there. So I'm not really sure which one to use. I'm going to go with the Q36, but those of you that know your stuff will know what it is and whether it should be H7 or H8, because clearly there's different variants in the pipeline. So we've got to fit this unit here into there, and that is a nice snug fit, so it'll stay in there on its own, which is great for assembly. We can put a drop of extra thin quick setting in there and that'll hold that in place. There we go. And then we've got this Q36, that's going to go onto that bit there. So that's just going to drop on there like that. And then we've got H7, I have already test fitted this. H7 is going to go on there like that. Job done. And I'm just going to brush over that with some extra thin quick setting just to soften the edge. So that's that done, so we can cross those bits off. And then we've got this unit here going on, and we've got another piece here which is, I don't know what that is, but H5 and H6, again they're 85, so we'll put those on. This unit here is 85, and we've got some pipes, that is H24, so that's there. So I think what we'll do is fit that as well. It's going to be easier to just hand paint everything, all the details in at the end. Remove these sprue gates. Make sure you're only removing the sprue gate and not any of the pipe. A little sponge on there, give that a clean up. One of the beauties of this Airfix plastic, whenever you sand it, it goes white. So if you want to make the seam lines show up, so you can scrape them away or whatever, just give it a gentle sand and they will appear before your very eyes. There we go, and that's going to go in like that. And there we go. So that's that gone on. And then we've got these little pieces here, H5 and H6. They look like little horns, don't they? So we'll take 5 off first. Plastic feels quite hard. I think I mentioned that before, didn't I? So we shall clean up the sprue gate on there. Where's my sponge gone? Take away any mould seams. I'm actually working on a kit at the moment which has got very heavy mould seams on it, and it's every part. It's ridiculous. It's taking, you know, if I'm spending 5 hours building the model, I'm spending 10 hours cleaning seams. It's crazy. So this one was number 5. So this one is going to go into there. Is that how it goes? This is about as clear as mud. I can see I've got a seam there as well. There's my knife. You can see the sanding shows up the seams. It's great. So, how is this going? Try to work out. It's facing, we've got this round bit here. It was 5 I've got off, wasn't it? Yeah, 6 is still on the sprue. I'm trying to work out how this is supposed to fit, because it's not very clear. In fact, it's not clear at all. This hole in here has got to face sort of over there. Let me work this out and I'll come back. Right, so I fitted those. Very ambiguous how they go, but I think they look right in the end. You need to make sure that the little bit where they locate looks okay. I've now fitted these parts here. I'm doing version B, so I've used Q25 and Q24, not 23 and 26. Again, very ambiguous in the fitting. It's just a pin. I'm not exactly sure how it's supposed to go, but I'm guessing that's right. I'm looking at the views here. You can see, looking down on the top of the engine, that these are sort of just outside the edges of this upper plate. And when you look at it from the side, they're kind of horizontal, so it would have been nice if they'd have had 2 pins on them, or a D-shaped pin or a square lug or something, to actually give us an easier location. So yes. Right, so they've gone on there. Who knows how I'm guessing we can just, I think there's supports for the machine guns, aren't they? I'm not sure, but I'm guessing we'll be able to sort that. I've now got to the point where I'm not doing that, and I've done those. So I've now got to the point where I need to be doing some painting, because we've now got bits and pieces going on that aren't going to be black. This is flat black they're calling for on here, and that fairing is the upper surface colour. So yeah, we need to start looking at painting the engine now, but I'm going to do some sub-assembly because this here is either going to be green or silver, and if it's going to be silver we want to give it a black primer anyway. So we're going to stick that together. So we'll get this off the sprue. What is this? Because I called it a plenum chamber in my review, and someone said, no, it's not. It's an oil tank. Okay. Let me get these God hands, because those Tamiya cutters, I think, either this plastic's really hard or my Tamiya cutters are really blunt. It's quite hard. It really is. So we'll get the God hands and use them as they were intended. Cutting up to edges like so. So we can come down on that one there, come down on there, come down on there, clean away the debris, and then we can come over here and using the God hands properly you can actually remove your sprue gate. We'll grab our sanding stick. Just remove the remaining, get the skinny stick into here, and then on this one it looks like it's dead flat. No, it's not. That centre section there is raised, so we'll just come around the edge and make sure we get rid of those sprue gates. And then this should plonk together like that, and then we'll be able to let that dry and give it a sand before we give it a coat of black paint. And what I'm going to do in the meantime is just wipe over that with a sponge just to get rid of any seam lines. See, we've got a seam line on the back there, so just sand that away, and then we'll wipe over the front, and then we can put this together here. So I'm going to use the quick setting. I'm going to put a drop in there, and I'm going to put a drop in there, and then we'll put a drop there. Oh, we've got a couple of sink marks there as well, so we'll deal with those, because I believe, yes, they will be visible, I think, unless they're hidden under the cowling. And then we've got cement in there. And we'll put some cement in there. There we go. Job done. There we are. Right. So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to get some black paint down. And I'm probably going to get all these other parts off the sprue and give these a coat of black primer as well. So how are we doing for time? I'll see you back in a bit. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our painting done now. We've got lots of black parts. So lots of clean up, mould seam lines, which is the same for every single kit. It's just that some seem to be heavier than others. Tacken particularly have very heavy seam lines, as you will see in one of my forthcoming builds. This one, the seam lines are very, very light, but the beauty of this Airfix plastic, as I think I mentioned before, is when you sand it, you always get a white line where there's a seam. Let's see if I can show you. This is a couple of oil tanks that are glued together, and if I just sand over there, yeah, bloody typical, because I said it, it's not doing it. There we go. So you can see on that pipe, where I've sanded it, we've got a white line, and it's brilliant. So where there's a mould seam, you can see it. And look at that, you can see it there now. Definitely, you've got this definite white line. So you can just come along with a knife and just scrape away until the white disappears, and then you know you've removed basically what it is. It's dust that's sitting on the edge of the mould seam. And then you could just sand it over with a sponge again, and as you can see, we've still got something down in there. Okay. As you can see now, when you sand it, there's nothing. It's just light grey plastic. And then what I do, just to get rid of the sanding marks, I'll come along, I'll use the quick setting this time. Hardly anything on the brush at all. And just brush over it, just like so. And that will dry very, very quickly. And as you can see, you've now got no mold seams. Okay, so there's a little tip for the newer modelers out there. Yes, absolutely brilliant. So I've used black primer obviously because the engine is going to be black, and a lot of this is going to be or aluminium or silver or whatever. You can see here there is still witness of a seam along there. I might do something about it. I might just leave it because it's underneath the bottom of the engine anyway, but you know how fussy I am with seams and stuff. I may put some more Mr. Surfacer in there and then give that another going over. But there we are. So that's gone. The other side is absolutely fine. I think actually when I glued them together, what I should have done, when I do another one, because I am doing another one, I've got it on order, I'll clamp it together and then glue it. So there we go. In fact, when I do another one, I'll probably close it all up, but we'll have a go at doing that a bit better. In fact, if today is Sunday, I'm hoping to get this video out today, Sunday the 23rd of November 2025. I'm hoping to get this out today. If the kit is released tomorrow, I might have my other one by sort of Wednesday, Thursday, so I may be able to swap that out if I don't fit it just yet, because I don't think I need to. Just having a look to see if I need to. I can put that goes on there, and then everything else is going on the bottom. I'd have to leave those pipes off there, I think. But and maybe I'll get away with leaving it off and then see if I can make a nicer job of the other one. Anyway, so yeah, we've got parts here. Got the supercharger looking lovely, it's all de-seamed around the outside, and you can see that when you start to get some primer on these parts, they really start to pop. That's just black Mr. Surfacer 1500, thinned roughly, I don't know, 60-70% thinners. It's hard to tell Mr. Surfacer because it goes off with age, it goes thicker with age. So there's those there's mounts for the exhaust. We've got the fuel injection unit there. That's a beautifully detailed little part. There we go. So there we are. Ignition loom. And there's an engine bearer there. There's an ejector pin mark on the back, but obviously that's not going to be seen, so not worried about that. I don't think it's going to be seen. No, it won't be seen. So, and I've also done all the pipe work and everything that takes us sort of up to here. And then I looked over here and there's some other pipe work I've done as well, which is just cleaned up. And that turbocharger mount thing there, whatever it is. And I've also gone on and assembled these tanks. So that glue can dry, and then I can deal with the seams. They're going to be quite in your face with the cowling open. I'll probably do, whether they give the option of having the RLM or silver, I'll probably do it silver or aluminium, whatever, because it'll just look great up against the black engine and everything. Keep it all a bit sort of colourful. I haven't even looked at any reference photos yet, but I want to have a look at some reference photos and see if I can play around with the colours a bit to make it all look a bit more interesting. This is the problem when you get big scales like this. It's very difficult to make it look interesting. It needs to, you know, not just have that painted one colour. It needs to be silver and then have the straps painted slightly different and washes and tones and all that. Maybe some pre-shading and all that sort of thing as well. The other thing on mine, something to look out for, this tube on here, that was actually sort of not snapped right off but broken on the sprue, so bear that in mind. If you know, make sure you've got those on yours. If not, check the bag that the sprue came in, it will be in there probably. So there we are. So there we are, all ready to go. I've been cutting off some parts from versions that I'm not going to do, so you know, you've got dummy engine parts in there and everything, and there's the cowlings for the E version, I think it is, or D version. I just want to talk for a couple of minutes. Today is Sunday. Last night, or yesterday, Another review went up of this kit by somebody, and they found that they had some warped parts. Now, if I'd been sent that kit, rather than go on and on and on and on about it, I think I would have said, that's unfortunate, looks like there's quality control issues going on in India again, I'll have to contact Airfix and get a couple of replacement sprues, and by Tuesday, Wednesday I'll have the sprues here. That's the answer. So a lot of people are commenting and talking about the person who's put the video up and everything, and I'm not allowing those comments through. I'm not promoting someone else's channel on my channel, because I just don't do that. And really, I mean, I think there's about 5 or 6 people who've been sent one of these, and certainly mine's perfect, and the others are as well, I believe. So unbelievably, Moss hasn't got his yet, believe it or not. It's unbelievable, isn't it? He's the last to get them. He's normally the first. Anyway, and the other thing, I mentioned it in my review. It was also mentioned in this review of the kit about there being an issue with the masks. Somebody who shall remain nameless has told me that apparently when Phil Flory reviewed those masks, he found that they were peeling up. And a couple of people have commented to me that they're peeling up. Well, somebody has told me Phil Flory asked anybody that experiences those issues with those masks to let him know. And apparently the subject is blank. No one else has had the problem. So all I can think is, obviously Cartograph don't make the paper, they don't make the masking, all they do is cut it, and all I can think is they've had a dodgy batch. Now I don't know how big the roll of masking tape is. It's probably a good couple of meters at least, probably even more than that. So I think they've probably had a dodgy batch, is what I'm saying. So don't lose faith in masks, in the I almost said escort then, Airfix masks. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get one of the masks that I'm not going to use, and I'm going to test it now. Hang on. Okay, so as you know, I have the additional Airfix masking set, which has got all the canopy masks in it anyway. But on here we've got canopy masks as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to be using the Erla canopy, because I'm doing this one. Okay, so it's going to have the ordinary boxy canopy. So what we're going to do is take one of these masks off. I'm going to get this piece of plastic here. Get one of these cowlings. Okay, and what we'll do, remember this has been washed, so it shouldn't be too greasy. So I'm going to get this mask off of the paper, just like so, and what we'll do, we'll just stick it down. Blimey, that is very sticky. Okay, right, so that is on there now. Okay, that ain't going anywhere. I'll show you, look. That is really sticky. Okay, I don't know how I can show you, but I'll tell you what I'll do. Here's a little test. This is a Tamiya 10mm tape. Okay, and what I will do is put the Tamiya tape that way. Alright, and I've got the mask there and the Tamiya tape there on the left, and I'll pull and see which one comes away. Alright, we'll do it again. In fact, we'll use a new piece of tape. It's got to go that way, hasn't it? Okay, rub that down well. Rub that down well. Alright. So that's put that to bed, hasn't it? So there we go. I know what you're going to say. It's a larger surface area. Alright. You can see it's a larger surface area than the Tamiya tape. So what we'll do, all I'm trying to prove here, guys, is there has been an issue. I'm not calling anyone a liar, but it was a batch thing. It wasn't a, just to make sure, make sure you See, I'll push that down enough, all right? Okay. It's every bit as sticky as Tamiya tape. And remember, that's been down and up, down and up, down and up. That's only been used once. So there we go. There's no issue with these masks in my opinion whatsoever. What I'll do is I'll leave that on there. We'll put it in the bag and we'll see if it peels. Okay, like I said, when you saw the Airfix kit at Telford, you saw the sprues up on the wall. They had the German cross on the side of the fuselage, and there were no peeling up on that, was there? So there we are. I hope that's put that one to bed. Right, I will see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Hopefully we'll get back tomorrow with part 3 if I can get an hour on the bench or something, and go from there. I'm just going to leave all this to dry now, and then I'm going to paint the bits and pieces. Like I know this is going to be silver. Perhaps I'll mask some bits and paint some silver, whatever. Get the RLM grey down as well, and go from there. I'll see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.